Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Okay, it's 6:30. We have a quorum. Let's see, Kim's not going to be present. She sent an email saying she has something to do with her son tonight at school. Haven't heard from Chris or Jim, so hopefully they'll be joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. Oh, there he is. Since we have a quorum. All right, let's call the meeting to order at 6:31. Jim, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Would you like to be?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I had to stay home. I have an ill dog, so.
Okay, yep, no problem. Would you mind being timekeeper for us?
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you. Move on to item number 2, approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to be approved. Those one from January and the ones from November.
I'll move approval of the January minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor of approving the January 13, 2025 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None
Aye.
opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Minutes approved. The draft minutes from the November 11th meeting. We have a quorum now for people that were here. Last time we didn't have a quorum to people who could vote because we had one abstain. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from November 11th, 2024?
I'll move approval of those minutes as well.
I'll second.
Second. Open for discussion. If there's no discussion, all in favor of approving the November 11th, 2024 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed?
I'm abstaining from that also.
Okay. Minutes, November 11th, 2024 minutes approved. No one's here, or anybody here for public appearance for non-agenda items? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Item 4 on the agenda, new business. Is there a resolution? Is there a motion to approve resolution R-12-25 authorizing Dane County services for stormwater and permit review and erosion control inspection in 2025?
Make that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, sure. So historically, the city of Fitchburg is contracted with Dane County to provide some assistance with permit review for erosion control and stormwater management permits. And then also they have inspectors that assist the city with completing inspections throughout the year for development projects. So this resolution would authorize them to continue with those services here in 2025.
Ben, how often what's the schedule like for inspecting a site, and how many times are violations found?
Yeah, so sites are inspected weekly by county staff / city staff. Typically, you'll get sites where you won't have violations and sites that are kind of a struggle to keep in compliance, and that might just be due to the size of the site or just the amount of contractors at the site. You know, silk fence getting knocked down is kind of a big issue sometimes if there's a lot of people working there, a lot of different contractors coming in and out. But generally, you know, if there are issues, we're able to get them corrected fairly quickly. If there are, you know, major concerns, the city can also issue a stop work order. So that's kind of the last ditch effort, if you will. If there are continuing issues on a site, the city can also issue citations as well, which, you know, periodically citations are issued. But generally the stop work order is kind of, if there's an issue that needs to be corrected, that's, you know, that would be the threat, if you will, for construction sites to kind of get their EC cleaned up on their site.
And do other municipalities contract with the county? And if so, does the county, like, do they give everybody statistics on who's in compliance and who's out? You know, are like, I get the feeling that it's possible for a developer to say, well, I want to do some work over here because they're a little more lax than the guys over there, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they do inspections for quite a few other municipalities, so like McFarland, Cottage Grove. Yeah, Middleton might be on their list, but there's several throughout the county that they do these inspections for. We, you know, have enjoyed, you know, utilizing this service because we know that their inspectors have the necessary qualifications. They've gone through the erosion control, stormwater management inspection trainings, just like staff has here. So I don't, you know, I guess there could be some discrepancies between cities, municipalities, but in general, if
But
there's...
the county would let you know if
Oh, absolutely. We're copied on any correspondence that they have with sites in the city. So they'll issue what they'll call a notice of non-compliance if there's an issue. So we'll get copied on that.
But do you have visibility of those things in other municipalities? I guess I want to know, is the county doing any sort of, you know, reporting out to all the municipalities saying seems to be more problems here or fewer problems there?
Sure.
That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so we do at the end of each year get a report from the county that goes over some of the other statistics from the municipalities. So that would be, you know, how many active projects, how many inspections, basically their compliance rate. So I don't have those numbers on me right now. But yeah, we do kind of get a summary annually.
Okay.
Ben, but not all municipalities in Dane County contract with Dane County, correct?
That is correct.
So it's possible that some that don't might be a little more forgiving than Dane County?
Yes.
So people could shop?
I suppose. I mean, I think maybe I'm naive. I think everyone that does the inspections is qualified to do it and does a good job at it. So my hope is that it doesn't really vary much from municipality to municipality, but you know, I can't say that for sure.
In section 2.2 of the intergovernmental agreement, which is now 8 years old, is there any updates that need to be added to that, or have you guys looked at it, or the attorneys?
I talked about that with Dane County staff just this past December. From my standpoint, there wasn't really any issues with the current agreement. They didn't feel that there was a need to change anything, but certainly that's something we can continue to look in if there's ever a reason that someone might feel there should be a change.
Anything we need to change based upon regulations or things like that that come out. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, luckily there really haven't been any changes as far as the regulations go in that time period. So there wouldn't be any regulatory required changes for this agreement, at least.
Thank you. Any other discussion items, this resolution? If not, all those in favor of approving resolution R-12-25, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None opposed? Resolution passes. Next on the agenda is resolution R-33-25, approving engineering services contract for Yarmouth Greenway Stream Bank restoration. Is there a motion to approve that contract?
I'll second.
Okay, Diane seconds. Open for discussion.
Yes, so this authorizes a contract with Strand and Associates to complete engineering services for stream bank stabilization throughout sections of the Yarmouth Greenway. So they'll be completing survey of the identified areas where improvements are needed. They'll be putting together the plans, all the bid documents, and essentially providing the city with final bid documents, which then we can advertise. Schedule would be to complete all the engineering work in 2025, with construction then commencing in 2026.
Where was most of that work being done? Is it on the lower part of the creek, or it starts right up here somewhere? It's right up Fish Hatchery, right?
Right. Well, yeah. So I mean, it starts basically on the north side of McKee. So yeah, there's some large culverts under McKee Road there, and then it travels essentially north. There's some bike crossings, bridges, until it has a confluence with another tributary to Nine Springs, essentially just immediately west of the golf course. So the areas that we've identified are kind of scattered throughout. It's not necessarily more so concentrated in the south end or the north end. It is fairly spread out at different locations.
And does it stop where the fork is as you're going north, and one goes off to the golf course and the other one goes to, I guess, Capital City Bike Trail that way?
Yeah, I can pull up the map here quick.
This is part of our cleanup, isn't it? Stream cleanup? I remember doing something.
I've cleaned up along
Yeah.
there, yeah. Yeah, we've had a couple years over there.
It's been a while from what, Diane, you probably done most recently.
I think I did
done it
it a
with
couple of
Diane
years
once.
ago.
2 years ago, the area just north of McKee.
Yeah.
Was done.
Yeah, so
And that's been done a couple of times.
yeah, so it'll essentially be if you. Oh, I gotta share my screen, I suppose.
Yeah.
That would help.
Does Jim have a solar panel on his
It
wall?
looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Demo.
He puts a light bulb there, so.
Of course I do.
All right, so here's
Very colorful.
here's Fish Hatchery, where my cursor is, McKee, and then immediately north of McKee is the start of the Yarmouth Greenway. So it travels, there's quite a bit of sinuosity here, and then it eventually there's this confluence point, right about here.
Where the
So you
golf
can
course
see
is at?
there's,
The golf course is over that way.
Oh, to the right, okay.
yeah, so if I move up a little bit, you'll see here's the golf course.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's,
So it ends right about where your cursor is, right there?
correct,
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So there's about 1,000 feet, more or less, between all of the different locations where we would be looking to implement these stream bank stabilization practices.
Is that the reason that a lot of those trees have been sort of hacked off?
So that is unrelated, I believe, that, I believe they, possibly, but I believe mostly it was, and I don't remember what utility company it is there, but they've got an easement and they did some clearing, I assume for access for their purposes. So there were, some trees down, but that was, unrelated to this project. Now, that being said, this project will include some removal of trees, trying to limit that. We did walk with Anna Healy to identify trees that we for sure want to be able to keep. So the vast majority of the vegetation removal will be buckthorn, honeysuckle, some of the not as desirable vegetation. And then, of course, it's a pretty shaded area, but we will be trying to get some natives established along the bank as well.
Good.
And that confluence point is right along the Cap City Trail, right?
Yeah, basically.
Is there a requirement for the contractor to go out and reevaluate what they've done after X number of years to make sure it's working?
I haven't seen that type of language for this kind of a project before in a contract. Typically there'd be some kind of a warranty period, but that's typically about a year.
14 months is pretty standard.
Yeah, I could ask our consultant about that if they have seen any kind of extended warranties.
Particularly for any of the plant species they have out there, you get a certain time frame. If the plants die, they're gonna go back out and replant again or reseed.
Right. Yeah, and that, that's already been kind of one of the concerns expressed, that it could be a little challenging to get plants established there just with the amount of shade. But yeah, we'll work through some of those points to make sure that, we get something that's gonna last. And
Do we get any credit for this regarding the TMDL because we're controlling sediments?
So I don't believe we can get any credit for the TMDL, unfortunately.
Really?
There's very specific projects that are eligible to get those credits, but the city's MS4 permit does state that it's assumed that all greenways, conveyances, channels are stable and not acting as a source of sediment. So, for that reason, really, if that's the assumption in the permit document, then there is a reason to do this work.
Okay. So the assumption baked into the model is that the stream is stable, and in reality it is not right now, so we're gonna bring stability to it.
Correct.
And when they worked on the stabilization of that, I guess you might call it, I thought it was still the Yarmouth Creek, but further west of there and over by the railroad trestle in that area, what ended up growing mostly was garlic mustard. So if you can just prevent something like that, we certainly don't need more garlic mustard.
Yes, that would be a shame. Yeah, we want to see the plants that, we put in there and not get taken over by these undesirables for sure.
Jim, do you have a question?
Yeah, and my question is in the documents, what Strand is proposed to do, they do shear calculations and riprap sizing calculations. It sounds like much of the stream bank restoration would be a hard fix. I don't see any soft or bio-inspired stream bank stabilization approaches. Is there any considerations for approaches that are more than just riprap?
Yeah, we can take a look at that, and maybe it wasn't, maybe it could have been made more clear in the contract, but what I've discussed with Strand, and then also discussed with DNR fisheries staff. We actually walked this area over a year now, and they kind of turned me on to this integrated stream bank approach, integrated stream bank management. So there's a specific DNR permit for it. But essentially what it will be is, yes, some hard armoring, but some of that riprap will actually be top dressed with topsoil, and then that's where the native plant plugs will be installed. So it would be, just kind of the very bottoms of the bank would feature some riprap, and then above that you're going to have that top dressed area where you'll actually get native plant plugs installed. We could take a look if there's some areas that maybe don't have the shear stresses that would typically require more of a hard armoring. Then we could look into implementing some other methods that are out there for sure.
And this contract is for them to design the project, right? Not do the project.
Correct, just design it.
How many public meetings do you expect to hold?
I would say probably 1 to 2.
I don't expect there's going to be a lot of interest because it doesn't really affect any property. Just
as far as
it doesn't affect property, but there is a significant bike path that goes through there, so it's a very visible area.
Yep, and I just kind of got that on Dane County's radar, and for sure there'll be a lot of coordination with them because to complete this project, the contractor is likely going to need a few different access points, and the goal is, of course, to interfere as little as possible with bikers and walkers that use that path, but that's going to be hard to avoid completely. But as far as private property, the project will be all on the city of Fitchburg land.
Is there a desire by the commissioners to have, as they do the preliminary design specs, once they're done with that, they have them give a presentation of what they're doing to see what they have planned?
is that one of the public meetings you envision?
Yeah, I would envision kind of having a public meeting before we delve too deep into the planning. Just more of a, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing. Feel free to make any kind of suggestions or thoughts. Maybe some folks have some ideas that we haven't thought about. And then a second public meeting would be more focused on, the folks that live closer to the project, what they can expect, what's going on, because those questions will certainly come up.
You gonna put up a sign, what's going on here? That might be more effective than trying to have a public meeting,
Sure, we could try that. Put a QR code or something in a place to add comments.
I feel like anybody who's gonna ask a question is probably gonna ask a question because they're on the trail wondering what's happening.
Sure.
The Parks Department put up signs by the capital city bike trail by the bridge that goes over on Yarmouth Greenway about that park that's being.
Sure, yep.
So, and I think that might, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you expect the bike path to be closed? during part of this?
Well, I don't have all those answers quite yet,
Why not?
that's, we'll figure out those specifics as we kind of delve more into the planning. And what we'll probably do is just kind of reach out to some contractors, because one of the big questions will be access. Typically there's, means and methods, so the contractor, we don't dictate 100% of what they do, but certainly when it comes to things like biker pedestrian safety and wanting to minimize how much disturbance there is going to be to that area, what we would want to have is some specific kind of locations and almost like a not a street closure plan, because there won't be any streets closed, but almost something similar to that is what we would want to kind of end up with.
Yeah. Just a quick note that we're at time per schedule.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim.
Is there any existing riprap that's going to be like pulled out and replaced because it's old? And is there any hardscape along there?
There's sections that do have some hard armoring already. Those areas are generally the locations we wouldn't touch because they haven't exhibited the erosion that the other areas have. There's also just kind of piles of rock and snags and down trees and stuff in certain sections that we'll clear that out and hopefully can reuse some material if possible.
We're not getting any funds from other sources to help with this, right?
Correct.
So once you get the engineering done, any idea how much it's going to cost to actually do it?
Yeah, so they'll be putting together
An
engineering estimate. Right now, I think 300,000 could be, in that arena.
$300 per linear foot.
Yeah, nothing's cheap.
I noticed that in the bid estimates, everything was zero in terms of the cost from the other firms. Why?
So those other firms didn't specifically propose on this project. So last year, the city solicited general engineering proposals from 10 different consultants. So we got basically proposals from 10 different consultants that kind of outlined, what kind of work they do, included resumes, what kind of projects that they've worked on, where their strengths are, that kind of a thing. So now we are able to kind of look through that list and select a consultant based on the project and how their experience matches up with the scope of work.
Okay, so they're like on call then. You already have approved them. So you'll go through and say, okay, this requires, stream side restoration, firm X does this type work.
Correct.
We'll reach out to them and they provide you with an estimate on that? Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
But we don't get any other estimates then, we just get one.
Correct this time, yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor approving resolution R-33-25, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
None opposed? Motion approved. All right, let's move on to item 4C, the 2024 energy benchmarking initial discussion. You're all set, Phil? You still here?
Yep, I'm all set. Yep. Hey, everybody. So I gave Ron and Ben a heads up. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule compared to where I was last year in this report, but definitely it's still under development. I'm expecting to be finished with the report in June or July. That's usually sometime around there is when we usually receive our renewable figures from both Alliant and MG&E. So it won't be until that point that I have a better sense of what our total renewable numbers were for last year, but figured I could at least give a little overview of a little bit of overview of some of the energy trends that we got from last year compared to some previous years. We'll go ahead and do a quick screen share here. And let's see, we'll do this entire screen. So I got the energy report up here at a high level, just kind of looking at some of the goals we have from our 2019 clean energy report and just some other figures, and I'll pull up the image I had from this last year for the 2023 report so we can see that growth. As of 2024, and again, some of this is pending final numbers from MG&E and Alliant on what their grid energy, what the percent renewable was for their grid energy. But we went up slightly from 39% of our electricity coming from renewable sources up to 40. It's like 39.2 to 39.7. So it's a pretty marginal increase. I expect that to be higher because MG&E did continue their investment in renewable energy. They have more solar farms that went online. So I'm guessing that their total grid renewables went up higher, but at least with the numbers I have right now, we went up a small amount. A big chunk of not going up higher was that both 23 and 24, we had a significant portion of the public library rooftop solar array that was out of commission. So that meant we weren't generating as much solar on site. And that may be made another half to a full percent. Our on-site generation is about 7% of our total electricity use. So that loss of the library solar was maybe in total a half to 1% of our annual use as a city. And then again, that slight increase from 39 to 40, also we went from 25 up to 26 for our combined electric and fleet fuel coming from renewable sources. The reason I put that in there is that the 25 by 25 pledge that Fitchburg signed back in 2009, 2010 as part of Governor Doyle's Energy Independent Communities Pledge involved one of the commitments was getting to 25% by 2025. So we did actually get to 27% a couple years ago, again, with the decrease in rooftop solar because of some inverters that went bad. We've still been staying at or above 25%, which is nice to see. That should increase as we keep adding more electric vehicles to our fleet as well. Last year we had 2 EV Ford Lightnings that two of our public works managers used. We added 5 more EVs this last fall. We're working on getting some charging stations for those. But it means we're going from gas and diesel to electricity, which is going to be right now 20-25% renewable. So even if those vehicles are not powered directly, they're by some renewable, they're still coming from electricity. A lot of combustion in that electricity mix there is also a portion that's renewable. The 2 biggest figures down here on the bottom, our overall decrease in fossil fuel energy use, a substantial decrease, and this is mostly related to the natural gas usage for the city dropping about 10% over the last 2 years. I still need to talk to our facilities manager and see, it may just be that the winters have not been as cold the last couple of years. But a pretty substantial decrease in the total therm purchases from our utilities, which is great to see. That combined with again a little bit more renewable energy, but seeing decreased overall fossil fuel energy use plus continued population growth means that our per capita fossil fuel emissions have decreased a pretty healthy amount as well. We were looking for a 30% decrease in per capita emissions from 2018 to 2030. We're over halfway there after 7 of those 12 years. So we're making pretty solid progress there. We expect, of course, when we have the police services facility built, that's going to change. There's of course still some decisions that have to be finalized there, but that's going to add to the city's overall fossil fuel. So it's going to change a lot of these numbers in the next couple of years once we have a new significant facility online. But this is at least where the city is with these major energy goals as of last year. There's a lot more images in here. I'm going to cover this in a lot more detail once the report is finalized and we get into that point in the summer. But just a couple of the big highlights are overall our energy usage was down last year from the year before. Great to see. This decrease, going from the mid 80,000s therms to 73,000 is, again, very, very, I don't know, very surprising. I didn't necessarily expect that, and I'll chat with the facilities manager about that. But seeing energy usage overall going down is good. We've put a lot of investments into energy efficiency, and it's nice to see that paying off. But yeah, that's where we're for high level themes right now. And if you have any questions right now, I can try to answer them. I've only got about 10% of this report actually put together, so I don't want to just start going through something that's not complete yet.
Jim's got a question.
Yeah. So the 18% decrease in per capita fossil fuel emissions, how is that calculated? That's
so for
citywide, the population across the city, and then how much natural gas and electricity is supplied?
Correct, yeah. So I'm looking at all of our electricity minus renewables, since there shouldn't be any fossil fuel emissions there, therms, gas, and diesel. So I'm just adding all that up, calculating our total fossil fuel MMBTU, and then dividing that each year. Now, we only get relatively precise census totals, of course, every 10 years, and there are adjustments made every couple of years to those figures, but basically I'm just assuming a 2% population growth each year from the previous census figure, and then that gets
that's
adjusted
fine.
when we get more finalized figures.
Where my question is going is, so it's based on the city's fossil fuel energy use per capita across the city. It has nothing to do about residential, commercial energy use. It's purely city facilities.
So part of our clean energy resolution also called for a similar 30% reduction by 2030 for overall community energy use, and that's a number that I just haven't gotten from MG&E or Alliant yet. We don't routinely get those numbers reported, and the first couple of years that I was in this role, we didn't get them reported. So I've got a little bit of work to do going back and getting some of these older figures, and then for the last couple of years also getting those updated numbers from our utilities. But we would like to see that 30% decrease for the whole community as well on a per capita basis. But the number I'm reporting here is municipal, assuming that to some degree it's not necessarily a linear relationship, but that as the population grows, the municipality is going to require more energy to meet all of the services that we provide. And you'll especially see that in the fleet fuel, as we're just having to drive more, cover longer distances, go to more locations to service that population. Yeah, generally you would expect that you're going to use more energy to service the larger population. So it's nice to see this decreasing, even if it is the municipal energy use versus the total population.
So we do have a previous goal of 30% fossil energy per capita use across the entire municipality. Did I hear that correctly? Or
yes. So the 2019 Clean Energy Resolution, what we called for was to hit 25% of the municipal electricity from renewable sources by 2025, and we've passed that several years ago. To reach 100% coming from renewable sources by 2030, what a lot of our neighbors are doing to reach that is purchasing clean energy or renewable energy credits, and we may look at that in the next couple of years and see what that would cost. I've done some rough mock-ups and need to revisit that. The other goals we had,
so the
other goals were the 30 by 50. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I understand how we can impact city energy use in our facilities and design the new facilities. How, if anything, can we encourage the city writ large to reduce energy consumption other than just tracking it and hope it goes to 30% reduction? That's a big thing when you consider the entirety of the city.
It is. Yep, it's a big thing. It is something that was looked at for the sustainability plan. There are similar, we tried to make sure that the goals in the sustainability plan on the energy side were in line with what we have here from our clean energy resolution. A lot of it is education and encouragement, looking at are there ways that we can encourage either through greater education or through incentives. And those are going to be things that the city will be looking at in the coming years. Once we've got that sustainability plan finalized, is what steps do we want to take to, certainly we've done a good job here at demonstrating leadership by hitting thus far our municipal goals and being on track to the other ones. But yeah, for the broader community, that is a big question, and we'll be looking to answer it in the short term.
Yeah, and I will pose that it's a balance between asking developers of new developments and communities to be, carbon conscious and solar arrays and geothermal or whatever the case it is, but balance that against the need for more affordable housing. So it's not an easy mix, but it is possible.
And to the point that was made regarding the stormwater services, we also want to be sensitive to what's being done in our neighboring communities, because if you're looking at opening a business in Dane County and Fitchburg has significantly more stringent requirements than our neighbors, that might just lead you to develop somewhere else. So we want to be, we really want to encourage everyone to be as responsible as carbon conscious as possible, without doing it in a way that just kind of makes people not want to be in Fitchburg. And it's a balance, but that's why you try to go through incentives rather than do the carrot more than the stick.
Thank you, Phil. Any other questions for Phil? Okay.
And we are right at time, so thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 4D, the 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plan budget request. Ben?
Yes, got my screen up here quick. So I just wanted to, and maybe I jumped the gun a little bit with putting this on the agenda, but I'll just go through and kind of provide a refresh of what is currently in the CIP for stormwater related projects, just so everyone is where we're at today. So briefly, we've got this stormwater pond dredging and retrofits project. This project receives funding annually. You'll notice in 2030, there's a quite a bit larger figure. That is when we would be looking to potentially dredge the McKee Farms Park Pond, or ponds, potentially both the north and south, ideally. So, that's obviously quite a bit of sediment that can be removed from there. But generally this level of funding allows the city to get a couple ponds dredged, at least a couple depending on the size, and then also perform retrofits as needed. So for example, some of the suggested projects in the TMDL study were fairly simple. It was just modifying outlet devices in an attempt to reduce sediment and phosphorus loading more, with the idea that perhaps this pond that was designed 30 years ago, we could take another look at it, make a few small changes just to how the water is released for a fairly small sum of money, and get some return. So that's another type of project that would fit into here. There's this Traceway Drive storm sewer reroute. This one is currently planned for design in 27 and construction in 28. Right now there is storm sewer up on Traceway Drive that releases stormwater into Nine Springs Creek. At this location, there are no upstream treatment practices or BMPs, so it's an area where we know we could get improvements from this discharge. So we'd be looking at rerouting the existing piping and actually have it discharge into the existing golf course right now. So taking this pond that's already out there and just sending more water to it, so we get a chance to get some of the particles to settle out of that discharge as well. That's upcoming. There's the Fitchburg Road Goose Lake Stormwater Project. That one is ongoing. You'll see in the CIP there's funding for this year. I think that project will actually be more likely to happen next year, so it'll get carried over. But this is another project that we are actively working on. Drainage and flooding improvements similar to the dredging and retrofit account.
Yeah, I just have one quick question on the previous project. It said staff will apply for grant funding from like FEMA. I mean, that's from like a federal government, FEMA.
Yeah, that might be difficult. So this is the project that we were potentially going to receive some funding from MMSD from. So that was attending the Badger Mill stakeholder group sessions all of last year. The MMSD Commission has been presented with a list of potential projects. It did include, kind of a rough concept of this project here. So we were looking for $270,000 from the MMSD. We should find out about that very shortly, I would imagine. So yeah, the commission was presented with this information or the portfolio of projects in December. So I believe they'll be coming to a decision on that funding soon. Drainage and flooding improvements. Again, this is just one that's funded annually for any kind of potential small projects that might come up. Lake Barney, so this was much talked about, 2019, 2020. It has since dried up significantly to more normal water levels. Again, the Village of Oregon was also going to need to complete a conveyance channel, so they had to get a way, a location for all this water to go. They were looking at sending it through Lerner Conservation Park, and then ultimately into the branch of Badfish Creek there. That work never occurred, so you pushed it to 2027, but until there's somewhere for this water to go, there's really not much the city can do at this point. So that one will just play by ear and keep discussing with the Village of Oregon. It didn't sound like there's any major updates as far as when this could get completed. So certainly a project that would be good to keep on the CIP here and just do it when we can.
But it's on their agenda, Village of Oregon?
Yeah, and I don't know where that sits right now as a priority. Of course, with it being so dry, maybe other things have come up. I know there's also, some private land that this new channel would have to go through. There were some, I guess, issues, I'll say, with getting a route through the private land. So there's kind of a lot of other things at play there, just besides the village getting their channel through the park. But yeah, it's just something we'll have to keep touching base with them. This project here is upsizing Schumann Drive storm sewer. So this is somewhat related to the Seminole Glen Park and North Stoner Prairie subdivision. When the North Stoner Prairie subdivision was constructed, they initially had water being piped into the Wooded Kettle by the Seminole Glen Forest. That discharge to the Seminole Glen Forest has been stopped. So there's actually a valve where you can close off discharge into that kettle. So right now, everything's just going down Schumann Drive. The storm sewer has some pinch points in it. There's also no way to get water out of that forested kettle other than pumping it. So there's not any kind of an overflow. So it would actually have to get up to the road and overtop Schumann. Before it would overtop Schumann, it would actually flood some private properties. So more than a few years ago now, there was an instance where that kettle did fill up with quite a bit of water, and there's some photos of that water getting very, very close to breaching some private property. So we'd be looking at basically installing a pipe into that kettle where if the water level does build up, it can get into that pipe and down into the Schumann Drive storm sewer. So that would be another component of this project. And then there's kind of a pinch point at the very end, the most downstream pipe before it discharges into the Schumann Greenway. So we'd be looking at upsizing that section as well. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't have to upsize any storm sewer, and we could find more locations to detain the water or infiltrate the water. But with this area being built up, it's just a issue of not having the land and very agreeable topography to find a location, where this water can infiltrate. I mean, that location was the Seminole Glen Forest, but those concerns have been expressed pretty clearly with the residents there that this pipe was contributing to some of the issues that they were having several years ago. So if we can't infiltrate into that kettle, there's not many other options. So upsizing the pipe is kind of the next solution there. And there's just been issues with surcharging of the pipe. There's actually been manholes popping off on Schumann Drive. So it's clearly, a capacity issue.
Ben, is this in the same area that you were talking, I think maybe 6 months ago you talked to us about you're going to put berms in and there was a playground that was getting flooded. Is this the same problem?
Yeah, so the city did complete a watershed study of that Seminole Glen Park a couple of years ago, and we looked at a couple different options to try to hold more water. One of those was berming up by the existing, I guess you'll call them wetland kettles. So there's the two kind of wetland lobes in Seminole Glen Park. We were looking at if there was a way to kind of allow those wetlands to hold more water and release. It's kind of an interesting area there because there's not really clear documentation that those were meant to be and designed as stormwater facilities. If that was the case and we clearly knew, hey, these were the stormwater facilities for this development, then there'd be a lot more things that the city could do as far as using that area to hold more water. But with it being wetland, there's other concerns. We don't want to, and this is something we've talked with the DNR about. We don't want to change the hydrology. It could affect the wetland function. So the berming up of that area was kind of a no-go, and that was kind of what we thought was maybe the best option to kind of hold more water back. The park is another option, but then you're going to have a park that's probably wet pretty much for a long period of time. And
Pretty good crop of mosquitoes.
yeah, so that's kind of how this project was got into the CIP in the first place.
So it still sounds like there's a lot of problems, but we diverted about 3/4 funds to Sain Road.
Well, that's because initially we were looking at upsizing the entire length of the Schumann Drive storm sewer, but the road is, I mean, it's in really good shape. We'd be basically tearing up this good road to do this project, and based on the modeling, we saw that we could make some pretty big improvements just by replacing the downstream end and kind of eliminating that bottleneck. And the other thing is, I mentioned that there's been instances where manholes have, their lids have popped. There's been some intense storms the last few years, 2 to 3 inches in an hour. Typically stormwater designers in Wisconsin are oftentimes kind of looking at the 24-hour event, but we've been getting these really short events, a lot of rain all at once, high intensity that, if you look at, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association's data as far as, what constitutes a 1-year storm, 10-year storm, 100-year storm, and there's just been these short duration, high intensity storms that we wouldn't anticipate to be getting as frequently as it seems we have the last few years. So it's certainly not an issue. And if it rains an inch, that there's not an issue. It's when you're getting a couple inches in an hour or something more like that. So it's not, and there haven't been any, outside of in the Kettle where it was getting a little close to private property, there hasn't been any flooding of homes or anything down Schumann as a result of this, even in some of the large storms that have occurred in the past.
So there's 25 time.
Okay. Well, I can move on to this Lacey.
Ben, I'm just curious, have we encouraged people along in that area to put in rain gardens? Do you think that might mitigate things?
Well, I certainly would never discourage someone to put in a rain garden. That would be great if everyone put rain gardens and rain barrels in. I think to really kind of move the needle, you would have to probably have a very high proportion of the people that live there put in rain gardens. If it's just a couple people, it's not going to make any difference. You would really need to get major buy-in from everyone in that watershed, I think, to move the needle. But certainly, something that the city should continue promoting: rain barrels, rain gardens, things like that. Just reuse of stormwater, all good things that we like to see. Moving on to this Lacey Seminole Regional Stormwater. So this project is out by Sub-Zero Parkway and Seminole Highway. There's that. It used to be Sub-Zero's property, now it's Promega's property. But Sub-Zero dug out this wetland area. It was supposed to infiltrate water. It hasn't. It's gotten fairly close to overtopping. The city did pump it once before. We know that there will be more water coming into this kettle as some of the existing quarrying sites develop in the future, maybe a long time in the future, but certainly doesn't seem like there's going to be less volume of water directed to this internally drained area. So we're looking to find a way to infiltrate this water while keeping it within the watershed. So in discussions with DNR, their preference would be that the city keep this water within the watershed rather than, pumping it to Dunn's Marsh, which is what the city would have to do basically in an emergency. So we've been talking with a consultant about getting a scope put together to do some tests this summer, maybe dig a couple of test holes, test some infiltration in certain areas. And the big thing we want to be sure about is anything we're sending to this new infiltration basin isn't just recirculating back into the kettle. We want to make sure that it's moving in a direction where it won't just get recycled. So that is that project. Storm sewer on.
Just a quick time check. We're 5 minutes over as of right now. So
okay, get through these quick. This one here, this was a project that came up a while ago. Just some standing water, slowly draining water down Lyman Lane and Floran Drive. The city came up with a plan to kind of put in a sump pump collection pipe in the terrace. It was going to be assessed, and that kind of the assessment for the project kind of killed it. It became less popular once it was known that the work would be assessed. So that one's just getting pushed out.
Why would that be assessed and these other ones are not?
I believe it's because it's really aimed at fixing individual property owners' issues. It's not like some of these other projects where you could say it's for the benefit of the general public. It was more of, I believe, of a small handful of very isolated properties that would be getting direct benefit from this, whereas it wouldn't be really a community-wide benefit. For example, if that sub-zero basin, Promega Basin overtopped, you'd have water, basically going down, crossing Lacey Road to the south. It'd have to get closed off. So you could say, well, preventing that is a benefit, whereas, again, it's really just kind of benefiting a few individual property owners. So that was my understanding why this would be assessed. And then last project here, this was on here for a while, I believe, Nine Springs Creek restoration through the golf course. This work was already completed several years ago, but there was a fairly large storm that did kind of cause a little bit of damage. Most of it has been repaired. My walkthroughs of this seems like a pretty low priority project that could certainly be kind of moved down the years here as more attractive projects come along, but it is still on here. And then, at some point extending some storm sewer up Pheasant Ridge. So this is in the town of Madison. We understood there to be some stormwater issues on Pheasant Ridge, so looking to get that extended, and then this Yarmouth Greenway project that we talked about, and then just a general kind of equipment purchasing fund, so pumps, street sweepers, things of that nature. So with that, I'll bring this back again next week when I have next month when I have some proposed projects to add, and we can maybe talk a little bit more about suggestions. Maybe a water quality monitoring station at Murphy's Creek or something before there's development there. So things of that nature.
And are any of these projects impacted by, the freeze on federal funding, like grant funds from EPA or stormwater, clean water activities?
That is not clear yet. Yeah, I can't say yes or no. I don't know.
So I knew it was like 20% coming from stormwater, 80% from.
What I've heard is that hard infrastructure projects should be safe, but I don't want to say yeah for sure. And then we don't. So we'll just have to see.
That Sherrill Drive project that you did, has that solved the problems?
Yeah, it sounds like it. So I've heard from a couple of the neighbors over there that, I feel like we've only gotten, like I said, a few of those big storms since then. There weren't any issues after those rains passed, so it appears to be working as intended.
Are we planning to have a session where we talk through like other capital improvement projects outside of the stormwater? So like as we, move into some of the sustainability plan, recommendations, being able to weigh in on some of those capital improvement projects as well, because, I think it's by 2030, we're trying to get to 100% renewable, right? So.
Yeah, I would think any kind of project in that sustainability realm would be something we obviously under the purview of this commission here.
Okay, great, thank you, Ben. So let's move on to.
Yeah, that was my, just one quick question. I had a similar comment in the capital improvement program. We're doing lots of stormwater projects and water resource type projects, and that's all great. But I don't see anything in there about incentivization programs for clean energy, for community energy or similar. So maybe something to think about down the road is if we do want to go to 30% community-wide fossil fuel per capita reduction, maybe there's some things to think about in capital programs down the road for that community type of renewable energy.
And we will start looking at that. One of the difficulties is with where we are in the process, we're still talking through implementation of the sustainability plan. We're not at a point where it's been formally approved by council, and nor do we yet have staff kind of mobilized to act on it. So that's when we can start looking at things where we might be able to get some things into the CIP request for next year, but we'll just have to see when we get things approved and how quickly we can start formulating plans.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 5, old business. 5A is a draft 2025 calendar events. Hopefully it's a final one. Last month I worked with Ben, Phil, and Chris to update the calendar events, which everyone has a copy of. And if there are any comments, let me know, but hopefully this will be the final. One thing I did add on here for the focus area for 2025, it's kind of based upon the great presentation that Ben gave to the committee of the whole last month regarding the TMDL report, is having support a USGS gauging station on 9 Springs Creek, since there is a lot of information or a lot of data there's not a lot of data that we have what's actually coming in the 9 Springs Creek and flowing into the Yarra River. So just like we have it on Swan Creek, to establish some type of a gauging station on 9 Springs Creek as well. And I'm sure, Ben, is there some support of that in the city that you know of, or?
Well, I'll have to bring this. We should have a meeting at some point with some of the other stakeholders in this 9 Springs reach here. You really got Fitchburg, City of Madison, Monona to a much lesser degree. And then, of course, Dane County,
right,
who owns a lot of the land, and the E-Way itself is kind of the 3 potential stakeholders that may have interest in providing funds for this. But I'll have to check in with them and see.
MMSD, would they be another potential partner?
Potentially.
Okay. I noticed CARPC in the recent grants awards by DNR, CARPC got funding to help pay for 3 gauging stations in Dane County area. So they were able to get money from the DNR for that to support some of the costs for those gauging stations.
Excellent.
So actually, that is for you if you wanted.
Yeah.
The grants that came out, you can share that with Phil.
Thank you.
So that was the one thing that was added as a focus area for 2025. I think pretty much we've addressed everybody's, what they would like to see come up over the next year. One thing I did add is, I'm not sure if people are familiar with neonicotinoid compounds. They're actually, they apply them to seeds, soybean seeds and corn seeds and other seeds, but primarily agricultural seeds. It's a pesticide. that they put on, and it's having a very dramatic impact on the aquatic life in the streams, particularly a lot of aquatic insects being impacted by heavily. And also the honeybee population. One granule of this compound, or the size of a sugar granule, will kill up to 185,000 bees. One little sugar granule. So that's getting into our waterways. So when we have a lot of agricultural land out here, corn and soybeans are being planted, and sometimes the farmers don't know that their corn is being treated with that type of material. So it's something I think we need to kind of look at. I'm going to try to arrange from a speaker from either from UW or from DNR to give us a presentation on this and talk about this in June. So I thought it'd be an interesting topic.
Might be appropriate for the Ag and Rural Affairs Committee.
The ag and what?
So,
Well, maybe do a combined
Yeah.
session, so we've combined with like other, like, we did the tree community outreach event, we combined with, what was like the subcommission of
Tree Advisory Committee.
Tree Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we've done that before with like,
Okay.
bikes and ped, I think we've kind of come together with, people from each commission, kind of formed a small subcommittee for that event.
Okay.
But I think, with their reach, I don't know exactly what that is, but, there could be, there's definitely benefit to working with another commission and reaching out to their people and the people that they work with or hear from, to help get it into, the content into the right people, right?
Okay. Yeah, I listened to John Lyons for the presentation at the Trout Unlimited meeting last week and Oshkosh, their annual meeting, and it was pretty powerful what's going on with these compounds. So it's kind of like the next PFAS or something that's going to be impacting. So anybody have any comments on the calendar for 2025?
Looks good. If you eliminate one space between June and July, you can get that August all on the same page.
Extra space in there.
Okay. Let's move on to item 5B, 2025 event planning discussion.
Yeah, so next one that's coming up here is going to be the Shred event. That is April 12th. We'll either Phil or myself will start reaching out to secure some volunteers. We'll see if there's any council members that would be interested in volunteering again, as well as, of course, anyone on the commission here is welcomed. I know Ron, Diane, Kim, Chris. Did you?
I didn't know, but
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyone that's that would like to participate can always use some more volunteers if it's directing traffic or helping people unload bags from their cars. It's pretty fun. I always have a good time, have some coffee, and talk with a bunch of the residents, and yeah, it's fun.
You get a lot of thank yous.
Yeah.
I mean, people are very appreciative that we have this event.
So it's no religious holiday or anything, April 12th, not like.
Not that I know.
Easter's really late.
Okay.
So that one's going to be right around the corner here, followed closely by the waterway cleanup. I would like to still do I think it was April 26th, Saturday 26th of April.
That's Earth Week, right?
I think
Well,
that's also Easter.
Earth Month.
So the Shred event is a week before Easter, and then the 26th is the week after Easter. Yeah. Easter's on 4/20 this year.
So primarily we had Dunmarsh, Swan Creek, what were the other two? There's like 4 of them, right? Areas that we focused on.
If you're gonna be doing that reconstruction on Yarmouth Creek, it doesn't seem any reason to do a cleanup there.
Yeah, and we've of course walked it a few times with planning it, and didn't notice too much trash. So I think maybe the years of hitting that pretty hard have really looked
pretty clean. So yeah, I think definitely Dunn's Marsh, and the little creek south of Crescent that feeds into it.
Last year, we cleaned south of McKee.
Yeah.
That little area, that was really bad, but it doesn't look, I mean, it's not great, but it's not terrible this year. And by the end of April, I think that's gonna be too overgrown to be too easy to clean.
Potentially, yeah.
I've done Dunn's Marsh, and so I'll be more than happy to lead that again with Dunn's Marsh, unless somebody else wants it.
Then we've typically, Chris has led the Swan Creek area, and then Kim has led the Quarry Hill Hill area.
Are you gonna put an announcement on the city's Facebook page?
Yeah, we'll get that on the calendar and potentially even get a little ad in the Fitchburg Star.
That would be great.
It'd be nice, you could just have one ad that lists the date of both the shred event and
All of
waterway
April events.
cleanup. Yeah, Earth Day events sponsored by RCC.
There's the Med Drop event, I can't remember exactly what it's called. They've just released the date for April, and it's April 26th. So if we could get all of that in a little bit of an ad, that would be perfect.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Oh,
great.
that is April 26th.
Mhm.
Is that here? Or is that
Um,
somewhere else?
I don't know if that's going to be here. I don't know if the Fitchburg Police Station's
I'll have to find out if they're
participating.
gonna participate in that April 26th one.
But, just historically, we've done the event earlier in April, like our waterway cleanups. So the good thing about that is typically there isn't, growth, and so it's, kind of a good time, if we have like an early spring, we could have pretty significant grass
And mosquitoes.
and mosquitoes. Well, both of those things start to come into play potentially as we get later in April. So that's why we've typically tried to aim to have that in the first half of April. So what's our,
Do we want to swap the dates for the waterway cleanup and the shred event?
I don't know that we
No,
can.
sure.
Shred events concrete.
What was that date again? Sorry.
4/12, yeah,
I think Crazy Legs is on the 26th.
Yeah.
that sounds right, the last.
We've tried to avoid that also.
It's Crazy Legs.
So
Oh, the big race.
I can't believe you're saying that.
It's crazy.
I'm not a runner, so.
Neither am I.
I come from running.
I normally run it, yeah. I don't know the confirmed date of that, but it sounds
I
about
mean,
right.
we don't have many options. I mean, Easter's in the middle.
Well, there's let's see. If the shred event is on the 12th, we could do the 5th. Could certainly do it on a Sunday also.
With doing it early in April, you also have a bigger risk of, the
Snow.
weather. So,
April's just a tough month.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have snow in late April too, but
I think on the day of the shred event, you just direct people to the nearest waterway cleanup as they leave.
Yeah, but we're gonna be working the shred event.
how much horsepower do we have?
Yeah.
Unless we're gonna do it in the afternoon, so.
You might want to keep that in mind next year when you schedule the April event. I mean, we could do the shred event anytime, but
Right.
waterway cleanup better early than later.
To some degree, yes. The shred event, we always have to go with what the vendor's availability is, and that was a limitation here when we scheduled the spring one for 2025.
Yeah, I know we have tried to, there's only so many weekends that we can do it, right? In the fall, we're trying to stay away from Badger football games, and we, happen to do it right when they're playing Alabama in the morning. But still had a decent turnout with it, so I was encouraged by that, because I thought that might really hurt the number of people that come to it. And then in April, April's just a busy month, so it's a challenge, but I know that you guys lock those in as soon as you possibly can. They're really tough days to lock in.
So do we have a date then for the waterway cleanup? We had the 26th, but.
I mean,
I think it'll be okay.
I think the
so, too.
26th will be okay, and then I know, I think I mentioned last time that that's also the Lions Day of service, and I think they'd be willing to kind of do some cross promotion as well.
Well, we don't all have to do it on the same day.
Yep, right.
That's true too.
I mean, shoot, you could do a cleanup right now, there's no snow. Just wait 2 days and then you won't be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Crazy Legs is April 26th. Starts at 9:50 a.m.
So maybe, you know, the leaders, if they wanna do it on the 5th, April 5th, or if they wanna do it on the 26th, or the 13th,
Yeah, I mean,
you
I
just need
think,
to know for the ad that's going to
I'll just need to know, yeah. I mean, maybe you would even get more people by having different date options. I don't know. Have we tried that before?
We have, and it worked out, okay.
It worked
And
out fine,
and there were some churches who decided to sponsor cleanups and they would pick whatever day worked for them. So,
Can you guilt people into it? So at the shredding thing, say,
we're
look,
trying to guilt you into
we're
it.
taking all this stuff off your hands. What are you gonna do for us, right?
Yeah, well, we could try.
You could put in the ad that we'll be doing various waterway cleanups and refer people to the Facebook page or the,
I think that probably is a good.
I think
good way to put
there's a
it.
growing trend in churches to have green teams. So I think reaching out, like at the faith leaders, they meet every couple of months, right? And I think there's gonna be a meeting in early March.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as long as they let whoever is leading it lets us know, and we'll pick up the bags. If we just know where they were put, we'll provide the vests, gloves. You know, certainly if there's other times that work better for people, then the trash is still getting picked up. So that's really what counts.
it's gonna be in early spring, that's what the groundhog said.
Yeah, I don't trust that guy.
Would there be an advantage to trying to do a waterway cleanup in the winter when it's frozen and you can actually walk from one side to the other? Or is that just too big?
Dangerous.
Well, normally we have snow cover, so you can't see the stuff.
Right.
This year's an exception, but like I said, wait 2 days and you won't be able to find any.
You also have to time it so that you do it on a day when it's 30 degrees, when it was below zero for a couple days, so you got thick enough ice.
It's hard to promote something like that, you know, like it's so variable, and
Cold.
good luck with volunteers that wanna.
You'd have to do it with a flash mob.
Yeah, a lot of people at least on Dunmarsh here, they get kind of wet
Right.
going through there, tromping through there, if they don't have any waders on or anything.
Yeah.
So, and if it's, ground is frozen, the mud, your cans are gonna be frozen in the mud and things like that, you're trying to get out of it, so.
Right.
That's true.
That's why I like April 20th, I like the nicer weather, it's warmer to go out
Well,
and
I've
do it.
done Dunn's Marsh later in April and it was nasty. I mean, the mosquitoes were bad and the growth was bad, so it's hard to predict.
Yeah,
So I think the action item is really who's ever leading a waterway cleanup needs to let you know when they'd like to
Yep.
target doing that.
Yep, I will plan on
Might
that.
target the 5th and have the 26th as a backup and do something like that, you know.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, and I think like Diane said, an advertisement could more or less just say various waterway cleanups and point them to.
During April.
Yeah.
I think we should put dates in there, though. I mean, they don't see any dates, they're not gonna get interested, I don't think. They know on this
We have
date,
to have dates. You know, if it was a QR code or something, we'd have to have the dates then on the Facebook page or whatever site we created for it.
I don't know if the Star does QR codes.
I think they do. I
Do you?
think.
If you included, well, I was gonna ask
I think
about
they
that
do,
too.
yeah.
So like for the articles that we write, is there an opportunity for us to put in any sort of a graphic at all?
other than your picture.
Well, under the previous editor, no. Under this one, I don't know.
Because that would be handy, just give people something to
Yeah.
point their camera at.
Okay.
Just, I don't know if this was the intent of this item, but like, when we talk about events, there's like our annual event would also be coming up. And so I just wanted to give a quick update on that. So one of the action items from the last meeting was that Kim and Sharon and I were going to get together. We tried to make that happen last week, but Kim had to be out of town for work. And so we still need to schedule that meeting. So I think we're going to have that meeting. I think I'm probably going to share out, just the results of that meeting with commissioners, just to inform them of where we're heading on that front. Just because it is something that, if we are going to have an April event, which I'm not 100% sure on, but if we are going to have one, I'd like commissioners to start to know about that before we get to the March meeting.
What's the topic? Do we know that?
We talked about food waste being something that we wanted to try to target, but we have a lot of good ideas for the year, so we'll give a little bit more of a comprehensive game plan as to what we come up with for the year, and we can kind of work with that. But Ron, your speaker that you said, that could be like a Green Thursday event potentially in June. So
Well, this could be if you did an April event, invite the Ag and Rural Affairs and the general public to an event talking about
Neonics.
Yeah.
that might be easier than a food waste event. A food waste event might need to be, maybe that's more appropriate a little bit later.
Okay, so we're still planning for June though, right? That's what we have on the calendar for the annual event.
It kind of depends, I mean, we've done it in June, we can do it a little bit earlier. I think we talked a little bit about maybe doing something in April, but that's coming up
A lot of
pretty
stuff
quick.
going on in April.
Yeah, April's coming up fast, but if you're gonna talk about that event and you wanna get farmers involved, ahead of planting season would be better.
Yeah. Could I grab that quick just so I can make some notes on it?
Like that.
Can I just grab this? So
Yeah, I was gonna make copies and send it to everybody.
Okay.
Scan it in.
How do you pronounce it? Neonics?
What's that?
Neonics?
Neonics, yeah.
Neonics?
Yeah.
Never heard of it. Okay.
Neonictoids.
Neonictoids, yeah.
Not my realm of environmental.
Okay, any other discussions on the event planning and the waterway and the e-cycle event? Okay, let's move on to item agenda 5D, the police facility sustainability upgrades, discussion on that. I mean, there was a packet in there, a letter from the FGMA architects. So I'm not exactly where we stand on this now. Yeah, we had a lot of discussion, is this a final revise? This is revision number 7. So, and I think our last concern was cost for the lead.
Yep, so I do believe I've got an answer for that. And I don't know, Phil, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So just addressing that one, the short answer is that the team is going to pursue lead accreditation or lead designation. I know there were concerns about some of the costs, but since one of the more substantial costs associated was with the advanced building commissioning, and that's something that is going to be pursued anyway, it's sort of, as long as that cost is already being included, then pushing ahead to lead isn't that much more substantial. So yeah, I talked with Paul Woodard, 2 weeks ago, and he said that they're planning to move forward on lead. I haven't heard anything else from him since, but that's the goal. Is that where things are right now, it looks like at a minimum it should be able to earn lead silver, and then they'll just kind of determine based on where the project looks. If they're 3 points away from gold, maybe they look to see how they can get there. If they're just scraping by at silver and gold is far away, then they stop at silver. But lead is the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know last time this was presented, at least for me, there was some sticker shock with the cost for the lead certification. It sounds like they're gonna maybe take another stab at what that cost would be, and it seems like they'll maybe renegotiate that piece of work. It sounds like it won't be what the cost that was presented to us.
From what I understand, it's the commissioning that costs a lot of money.
Correct.
And then the certification is just, not saying that it's nothing, but it's much, much smaller.
Yeah. So
I mean,
the three
based on,
big elements.
yeah, I was just gonna say, based on what was presented to us last time, I think the commissioning was, 200,000, and the lead actual, administrative documentation submittal paperwork was like 100,000. So it was like, only half as much as the commissioning, and I think there was a pretty good consensus among this group that the enhanced commissioning would be worthwhile. So for sure, that was, I think, something that this group wanted to recommend inclusion of. I'm sorry, it was the enhanced commissioning was 100,000, and the fee to actually do it was also 100,000. So it was like the same price, but I think that 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. I think that they're taking another look at how that number was.
That 100,000 was all of the professional fees associated, just time and labor associated with compiling, documenting, submitting everything for the certification. The certification itself would cost about 25,000, or maybe even a little bit less. It depends on the size of the building, the square footage. But yeah, that 100,000 is what they're renegotiating. That's correct. That's just the time and labor side.
Yeah, Phil, did you ever follow up? I sent you an email regarding FGMA did a similar police facility down in Illinois, and the city decided not to go through this lead process because they thought it was done.
I did ask Brian about that. I haven't heard back yet. One thing I looked at was that the focus for that facility, the focus for LEED with that particular project in Illinois was about energy savings. And it is, LEED is about more than just the energy savings. It's also about overall site maintenance and water infiltration and occupant health and comfort. And so it's what they chose to do in skipping over LEED. And I don't want to disparage anybody else, but their focus was a little bit different than what we've been trying to do with pushing FGM on a more sustainable overall building. And so there's not really anything else that substitutes for the kind of comprehensive nature of the LEED certification process. Having that third-party verification of all the results is really valuable.
Yes.
I did forward your email to Brian, or I sent that article to Brian and I asked him about it, and I haven't heard back.
Okay. Well,
so I didn't get FGM's perspective on that yet.
Okay.
There were a couple of open items from the last meeting, and then after the meeting, after I listened to it, I sent a couple of things to pass on to the architects, which I guess you were going to do, Phil. So what happened with the
yes.
solar panel, the two-sided solar panels? Are they?
Yeah, so the last I've heard, and again, I did send these questions over to FGM. I still have not heard back. It always takes a couple weeks to get a full response because they're bouncing it around a few different team members. What I can say is with the two-sided solar panels on the roof, it sounds like that's probably not going to be viable for a couple reasons. The biggest one is just that the way that the fixed panels will be mounted on the roof, there's not going to be a lot of light reaching the roof underneath them. And so it is a white rooftop, which would be reflective, but if it's shaded all the time, then you're getting a lot less solar, bounce back to the rear side of the panels. And they're, where those bifacial panels, this is my understanding, Jim, you may know more on this than I do. My understanding is that the bifacial panels are a lot more advantageous when they're a little bit higher off the ground, like we have with the O'Brien Solar Farm, where they're on the 8 or 10 foot poles. There's a little bit more, just a little bit greater ability for that sunlight to hit the ground and bounce back off. When they're mounted closer to the ground.
I did not know what their efficiency would be on top of buildings. I only know that they are very viable on, as you said, elevated, large scale.
Yeah.
And so that's why I just asked the question. I wasn't sure what the answer would be.
Yeah, I'm glad you did ask it, but that's my understanding. Is just, I don't have any numbers behind the difference, but just that it's not going to be as advantageous on the fixed tilt, especially because it's a relatively low angle. You know, if they're at more of a 45-degree angle, maybe that makes a difference. But when they're nearly flat, you know, there may be like is it a 10%? Then again, you've got it's a lot more just kind of like a sheet of solar panels covering the roof, where you're not going to get a lot of light behind them.
The other two things that one thing that I suggested, they mentioned something about the east-facing windows and south-facing windows, and I suggested maybe they consider putting awnings on those windows with solar panels on the awnings, much like Odessa's has done. So if you haven't heard back, you probably don't know that one. And the last.
Yeah, I don't have any info.
The last one was, they made a point of saying that they weren't putting them close to the edge so they couldn't be seen from the ground. And I thought, why do we care if they're seen from the ground? This is actually something we should be advertising, that we have solar panels. So can we get more solar panels on the roof if we're not concerned about visibility from the ground?
And that's a really good question. I don't have any info on either of those two yet from FGM. I'll circle back again and see if I can get an answer and let you know. The last question you had, I know, was about the projected energy consumption. So that they didn't really address that in January, but I did ask them about their energy modeling, and it is, again, this is my understanding. A lot of this, I don't necessarily get the full detailed rundown of things, but my understanding here is that what changed with the energy modeling is that the previous number that was really high didn't factor in all of the efficiency upgrades that they were planning on making to the building. It was a lot more baseline construction numbers. So once they actually factored in all of the efficiency upgrades and the renewable energy and everything, that's when they got the modeling a lot closer to what we expected to see in terms of energy use intensity.
Phil, how do you feel about, I think it's at 29.1% of all of the electricity would be offset by the solar panels, just in terms of our, the city's goals of reaching 100% renewables in 5 years?
It's not 100. It's I'd like to see it higher.
It's not even close.
It's not close. I will say that the police facility has, it is going to be the highest energy use building we have in the city once it's constructed, and we're still just looking at rooftop solar, and that is limited by the amount of space available. So they're trying to maximize, and that's why we got rid of any plans for a green rooftop, is we wanted to maximize the solar. And so maximizing solar, what we got to was just shy of 30% offset. The building will have, and I guess it'll have a little bit of offset from the O'Brien solar arrays as well. If there's ever another opportunity for something like that, another renewable energy rider, then we'll jump on that right away. But the only other way to get that renewable figure higher is to push more towards net zero energy. And the team decided early on that was going to be cost prohibitive, or looking at other solar opportunities like canopy parking, and that was never really considered.
So did you say it's the highest energy or the highest electricity?
I don't have a breakdown of electricity versus gas, but it will be, I guess I don't know the gas numbers. It will be the highest electricity user in the city. And that's a function of a combination of it using geothermal, and the library is the other most significant geothermal use. And that does increase the electricity use substantially. But the geothermal HVAC combined with just the size of the building and its 24/7 operations.
Have you compared?
Have
you compared the projected energy use of the police facility with other police facilities of similar size?
I haven't. I've asked a couple of neighbors for numbers on their facilities and have not really gotten the answers I'm looking for. No, so I don't have a good comparison right now.
Phil?
The closest I got was McFarland, but McFarland's public safety building is a combination of police and fire and their kind of courts, municipal administration, and so it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Okay.
Phil, is there any opportunities to have ground-mounted solar and for the police facility? I mean, I can see having an area set aside would be a great place to bring students and people to get understanding how solar panels work, but again, at the same time, we could be generating electricity for the facility. I'm not sure what it's going to be around the building in terms of available space. It doesn't always have to be on the rooftop, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. I honestly don't remember if we had an early discussion on that and it was discounted, or if it just really hasn't been factored in. I know that there's going to be the one large retention pond. I think, is that on the northwest part of the lot, Ben? Does that sound right? Kind of between the project site and the creek. There's going to be that retention pond.
Yeah, I think it's
and
actually I'm trying to get thinking about the plan and where the north arrow was pointed on it. I guess it was on the southwest side.
Southwest, and then I think the east and kind of the remainder of the south side, then they're looking at just the trees and a lot of they're trying to do a lot of native prairie type plantings. I don't know how much more modification can be done to their designs at this point. I can certainly follow up again on ground mounted solar as well, and what the consideration was there.
If we're seriously considering ground-based solar, I would suggest looking into putting it over parking lots rather than over green space. And we've got plenty of parking lot right around our civic campus here. That's something that is, I mean, Epic does that on their campus in Verona, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They do, and that is one thing. I haven't circled back in a while, but I had some preliminary conversations a year or two ago with Alder Gerhardt about this as well, because I know that in the next, I'm not sure how many years, the next 5 or 6 years, we might be looking at resurfacing the civic center, civic campus parking lot, and that's a point where I'd really want to make sure that we look at canopy solar for part, if not all of those lots, see what that would cost us and the energy savings. Now, one thing we have to consider with anything like that is that we want to get to 100% renewable energy, absolutely. We're going to hit a point where we're generating enough excess beyond what the buildings use during that period of production that we're selling a pretty significant amount back to the utility. And we know that in the past year, MG&E tried to change the sell back rate to, right now we sell it back at retail rates. If they ever changed that net metering so that we were selling it back at their market rate, we're dropping from something like 7 cents a kilowatt hour to 2 cents a kilowatt hour is what we're selling it back for. So the value of that excess solar, if we're producing more than we're generating in that instance, drops a lot. So, unless you can do battery storage, and again, you're adding to your costs pretty significantly there, that's the way that you can use 100% of the solar you're actually generating. Then the economics aren't really there for an individual user like the city to generate 100% of its own electricity from solar, unless you've got the battery storage, because of that uncertainty of the net metering. Right now, the value of the solar is the same whether we're using it or selling it, but we know that could change anytime in the next 2 years, 8 years, we're not sure.
It wouldn't be retroactive.
So I don't have the plans.
Go ahead,
I
Jim.
don't have the plan set in front of me about where the geothermal goes. For parking canopy, it's very structurally inefficient. You're putting in a lot of steel and structure to get that solar gain. What about putting solar ground mounted on top of the geothermal exchange field so that we increase the energy density for that application? Now, I do understand that we're interested in native planting and similar, and I know we're too far down the design phase probably to make this happen. But in a similar project with Dane County, they came to me and asked, hey, can we put geothermal in addition to our solar system that we're putting out north of the landfill. It was too late. You got to design these things well ahead of time to integrate the infrastructure for solar with geothermal. But this might be one of those opportunities where there's the pilot and see, hey, we're going to put geothermal on the ground. State building code says you can't build any structure on top of geothermal.
Yep.
Why not put solar ground mounted and really increase the energy density of that land that's committed to the geothermal?
And so that, I assume that you're not allowed to build anything over the geothermal. Is that more for stability of the soil, or is it because if you ever need to access it for any kind of maintenance that you'd have to take the building down first?
It is, without getting too political, it's just a requirement by the Department of Natural Resources in this particular state that was developed a decade plus ago, where they thought, well, if the geothermal field leaks, how are you going to get in to fix it? And you can't do it if there's a building on top of it. Wisconsin is one of the few states that has that requirement. So anyway, Wisconsin regulation does not allow a building or a structure above geothermal, but I would assume
solar would be okay.
It doesn't apply to solar.
Okay, because that was why I asked if you. Yeah. Oh, does Epic put solar over their geothermal?
Yeah.
Epic Field 3 has solar. Field 3 is where their ground-mounted solar is. It's very structurally inefficient because they also had the vision of doing employee a community garden and things like that, but it never happened. But Epic does have their large 1.6 megawatt solar field is immediately on top of one of their geothermal exchange fields.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know about
So
that.
I know it can be done.
The reason I asked is I would have just assumed that if you couldn't put a building on top of it, that there'd be restrictions on solar. But if not, again, I can ask the team if that was a consideration, if it's too late. But yeah, I'd have to ask them. I don't know what the cost and energy trade-off is there, and given where the budget's at.
I think it's a good idea to look into. The other consideration would be that we haven't mentioned yet is just security. So isn't there fencing around the entire O'Brien solar field? So
yep.
I think that's just something that we should at least be looking at, or that they should be considering. Might need to put some fencing around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can ask about that.
Thanks everyone for their contribution on that discussion. Let's move on to item 5E, the Fitchburg Star articles. Would that be fairly quick? Andy, it looks like, yours was submitted in February, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I submitted mine last week. Diane, you wanted March?
I can do March, but now that I know when the med take back is, I could also do April because it'll come out a couple weeks before that. So
Okay,
if
so
you would rather do.
I mean, mine's already out there, so we could switch with you. If that's
Would you rather have yours in March?
Yeah, we could do March for mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can.
My article is done. I just was waiting for this date, so I'll circulate it but I won't send it in to the Star.
Okay. And Ben is set for May for the dark sky ordinance. So we need to probably tee up June and July to get those ready too. So I'm not sure. Weren't you going to do something, Bill?
Well, I did one so far in November.
November, yeah.
I could do another one. I can think of a topic, I'm sure.
Okay. And Jim had December?
You did.
Yep, okay.
You did December, yeah.
Kim might have some ideas.
Yeah, she might want to do one for plastic-free July.
Yeah.
Okay.
She would probably want that in June.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll pencil her in.
Somebody might want to let her know that we volunteered.
And
I'll volunteer to do an article sometime in July, since mine was already written last year, so. I'll have to figure out what it'll
What
be.
was May? What was gonna be May?
Dark sky.
Dark sky. And I'll do an article for July.
I can take August.
I beg your pardon?
I can take August.
Okay. All right, next item is a discussion item only, Ben, to talk about the lighting ordinance. I see it's on the council's agenda tomorrow.
It is. So because it was already referred out and a group can't take action on it twice without it going back to council. So basically if, you know, we decided that there needed to be some sort of a change, what would have to happen is council at the meeting tomorrow would have to decide to not vote on it and refer it back.
So, and Oliver couldn't make a friendly amendment to it?
I believe they could make an amendment, but it wouldn't come back to us unless they specifically made that request. But yeah, I believe if any of the council members wanted to throw in an amendment at that time, they could vote on their amendment. So since we last discussed this, it went back to the Board of Public Works, so that was just at the end of January. That was a 2-2 vote. Essentially, I think what it came down to is just the sentiment that some folks think that there isn't a issue with lighting at this moment, so I think that was kind of the reason for the nay votes there. And then it also went to the Community and Economic Development Authority. And there were really very few questions there. And they decided, I think they voted unanimously to recommend approval of the existing version without any amendments to it. So kind of what we have here is, of course, RCC's amendment of eliminating single family and duplex or 1 and 2 family dwellings from the exempt list. So that would be the amendment that the council could choose to include.
So when the other committees voted on this, that was in there or not in there?
They did not vote for the amendment. They chose not to.
They didn't vote against it, they just didn't address it?
They didn't address it. So they didn't, when they took motion, it was to approve just the language in the ordinance without the amendment. So none of the groups had a motion to approve as amended by RCC. They all just approved the language in the ordinance as it was written. So that's
So what will come out of tomorrow's council meeting?
well, there could be a few different things. Of course, they could just be vote without any amendments, either yes or no. They could choose to vote yes, including the amendment that RCC made, or they could choose to vote on a whole completely different amendment that we don't even know about yet. So I believe those are basically the different paths that it could take at tomorrow's council meeting. And I'll of course be there to answer any questions that council members may have.
Bill, sorry to interrupt, what do you plan on advocating?
Yeah, am I the one who's gonna introduce that?
I don't know.
It would make sense.
Let me just
It came
check
from- It started with us. It says it was drafted by Public Works.
It's Resource Conservation Commission, so I'll be the one who's bringing the motion forward.
So you bring the motion forward with our amendment first, or?
I can do that, yeah. And I feel like that amendment was also discussed at the Plan Commission, was it not?
It was more so the first meeting, but I don't know if it was, maybe I think there was not all the same people that were at the second meeting that were originally advocating for removal of the 1 and 2 family exemption. So I think there's one individual on the Plan Commission that was more of a proponent to include the 1 and 2 family in this ordinance. I don't believe that they were there when they actually voted on it, because the other members of Plan Commission, I did not seem to be proponents for the 1 and 2 family lighting.
Well, here it says it was approved. What's the little asterisk mean regarding?
That must mean there was an amendment.
They just switched some wordings.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just, they wanted the attorney to consider the use of the phrase manifest injustice and potentially change it to unreasonable hardship. So that was more of a legal thing for our attorney to review than anything actual substantive to the ordinance.
Chad Brecklin will probably tell me how he would like me to introduce it, because looks like there were, 2 out of 4 approved it as is. So we approved the amended, Plan Commission and CETA approved the base, and then Board of Public Works was mixed but did not even entertain. I don't believe we entertained.
It doesn't sound like anybody. It doesn't sound like anybody addressed the amendment except RCC.
Correct.
So
did they even consider it?
Well,
I think we talked about the fact
that, yeah, I mean, I introduced it and made them aware that amendment was on the table, but they
took no action on it.
Didn't want to include that in their motion.
Yeah, so probably what'll happen is the base will be moved, and then I can move to amend per the RCC. And we'll see what the council thinks of that.
That'll be on FACTv, right? So we can watch that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll watch that.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, Ben? Thank
No,
you again
I mean,
for
if
taking care of
anyone,
this.
yeah, and of course, if anyone would like, there's, the opportunity to sign up for public comment or appearance.
It's been a long haul.
Yeah, it
a
has
lot
been.
of work.
Yeah, well, and I think, once it's on the books, it makes it maybe a little bit more easier to amend things from here on out. So yeah, hopefully this can be kind of flexible as this moves through. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully keep improving it.
Okay.
Nice job. Thanks
you.
for sticking with it.
All right, item 6 on the agenda, council update. We're actually ahead of schedule now.
Not a whole lot of interest to the RCC. Almost everything that came up in council came through via Public Works, which also came through here, wind slam and, permitting issues and stuff. A couple things from the Transportation and Transit Commission. The MPO, the Greater Madison MPO, has a draft transit plan that's been updated. So if you're interested in that, I think there's a public comment period that's currently underway. The Tree Advisory Committee was writing a grant to try and get a strategic management plan specifically geared towards our increasing canopy in our H&I neighborhoods. And then tomorrow, the big contentious one is gonna be the McGaw Park. All the forested areas there, there's a plan to, well, when I say all the forested areas, what I really mean is all the areas currently infested with buckthorn and honeysuckle and black locust and other invasives. And so there's a plan that the city forester wants to put forward to clear out all those invasives, which is basically like 90% of the foliage there, and eventually convert that into an oak savanna, which is what it would have been, you know, pre-white man civilization.
So what would be the concern then if we're removing
Well, the neighbors are quite upset, and they have been. Remember that person, remember when we had that event at,
Yeah.
and that man verbally accosted her, the
Yeah.
city forester? They want that coverage. They want that privacy.
Yeah, it's privacy, it's a noise block, it's a wind block, and it provides shade in the summer. I think that's really what it boils down to.
And so it's just more than the buckthorn, then it's other trees potentially that.
It's a lot of silver maple,
Okay.
a lot of them are
Box elder.
pretty ugly looking, like
Okay.
broken off
Yeah,
tops.
plenty of box elder,
Okay.
plenty of black cherry. The black locust, I think, is maybe the biggest problem out there. That stuff, you know, and those things are like canopy trees now. They're 50, 60 feet tall, but they are invasive. And they propagate via underground runners, so you can't just take them out one at a time because you'll just get new growth.
Okay.
I've heard they've had trouble with flooding after they do a lot of the forestry clearing there. That's what a lot of the neighbors complain about. But really, once you establish any better vegetation, it's gonna infiltrate much better than honeysuckle and buckthorn, so.
It fills in quickly. Once you get rid of those, it fills in nicely.
I mean, is it possible to do it in steps, like get rid of the buckthorn first? I mean, buckthorn doesn't get that tall, does it?
It can get
Yeah.
pretty, yeah,
So I
I've
think-
seen them 30.
30 feet?
Well, probably not that tall, but definitely approaching 20.
Just the thorns are 30. There was verbiage in there that said the original plan was to try and clear out all the invasives over a 3-year time frame, and to kind of appease the neighbors, they were gonna stretch that out to 10 or 12 years. I don't know how well that's gonna work or what sort of a schedule that's gonna entail.
Well, the thing with buckthorn, if you don't get rid of all of it, then you've got the berries and
Right.
more trees are popping up.
Well, and they also tend to spread via runners.
Yeah, that'll be a busy council meeting.
We're expecting a lot of public commentary.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Well, I guess the only other thing that I'll mention is the Jamestown Quarry area, just on the north side of McKee, immediately west of Fitchburg Road. Those 4 drive-throughs are moving in.
Okay. All right, item 7, staff and commissioner updates, solid waste, Ben?
Yeah, just general news. Maybe you saw Paul Terry announce that now pizza boxes can be recycled even if they're, you know, a little greasy. So after years of telling people not to, now we can all recycle them, which I'm sure a ton of people were doing anyways.
Yeah. Is there a way we can update the website or something like that? Let people know?
Yeah, so we did make a social media post and we did update the recycling guide. That's now on the website. We haven't swapped out the hard copies down here, but.
Can you make the recycling guide and the recyclopedia search easier to find? So if you go to the homepage, you type in recycling, you don't get that. You get all these old articles.
I'll have to talk with our IT department because I do not know how that search function works as far as how it, how the top results are populated. I'll have to ask because I just don't.
You have to you have to know that resources in public works, and then you can go to resource conservation, and then you can get recycling. Yeah, it's too bad.
It's at least on the home refuse and recycling page, but if you don't know how to get there.
If you just go to fitchburgwi.gov and you search for the word recycling, refuse and recycling is the third hit, and it's got a date of 2015, which makes you think you probably shouldn't click on it because it's 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to see if there's a way they can.
I'm sure they can manipulate that.
Yeah, change what results are popping up at the top.
Did you say the city did do some social media on that?
We did, yeah.
We could maybe look back to that and share it with Swan Creek residents. I mean, I think that might be a good idea for commissioners that, do any of their communication or outreach on their neighborhood pages to share that out with their neighborhoods.
Yeah, I can email you the graphic. Terry sent us a few little graphics for social media posts.
Yeah,
I'll send those out to you. Definitely seen a lot more requests for the larger recycling carts. So I think
Primarily in the neighborhood where we expected that people were using overflow.
kind of all over.
Really?
Surprisingly, yeah. So that's been interesting. Another thing, I didn't have it on here, but I did talk with Todd at Pelletary a couple of weeks ago and just kind of getting the waste sort. I know we want to do a waste sort in 2025 on his radar. So kind of thinking, probably best to do it when it's not summer. So sometime in the late fall would be what I'm currently targeting.
Or March. March would be good.
Yeah, I think what it's going to come down to is my ability to get enough volunteers in time. So I think just to help give myself a little, do myself a little favor, I might try to target it later so I can have plenty of volunteers.
I think we had 3 Pelletary workers the last time we did the waste sort, and maybe, were you there, Chris?
No, unfortunately not. I'd like to be a part of this one.
I think there were maybe 3 non-Pelletary. So it's not like they took the whole collection from the day. It was like
In a random assortment.
And that worked out. I think we used the salt shed, so that's when you need to time it when there's room in the salt shed. Yeah, it worked out pretty well with 6.
Okay, well, I think we might only get one from Pelletary. At least that's what was in their proposal, that they would be willing to provide, I think, one person. I looked at some of the past waste sorts. It looks like the city's kind of tapped into UW before, found some students.
They have a whole team that does that, so you could potentially see if that team would be interested because it's just another data point for them.
Yeah,
Great.
that was my plan, to reach out to them to see if they'd be interested. I think the more volunteers, probably the better for this kind of a project.
When I helped with that, I found a 6-pack that was unopened, so maybe that will be some nice things.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe that. I thought this was Wisconsin.
It was a slip.
Yeah, there you go. There's a little.
Somebody's been looking for that.
Yeah.
Somebody consumed it.
So there'll be more information that I'll be sharing about that as we kind of get some more of that nailed down. So that's what I got for solid waste. Stormwater, did meet with the DNR a couple weeks ago, so they're okay with what we've provided as far as our modeling for the TMDL report. So that's basically complete. Right now we're just working on obtaining, we've got some staff working on obtaining some
maintenance agreements and as-built drawings for private BMPs that we haven't in the past been able to get maintenance agreements and as-builts for. So we've got the credit, that's kind of the carrot to hopefully move some of these folks to provide us with that. Also just starting to get some documentation ready for the draft 2024 MS4 annual report. That'll be shared at the March meeting. You can take a look at that. There's going to be another presentation at the Committee of the Whole on February 26th. So this one's just going to be on the Fitchburg stormwater utility and a little background into stormwater utilities in general in Wisconsin. Also working on updating stormwater asset information, along with putting together all the documentation for projects that were completed in 2025 with stormwater components. We track our assets, so we're kind of going through that process right now. We've got bid documents finalized for the 2025 stormwater facility dredging and maintenance project. Those will hit the street soon. We've got some inlet repairs and culvert replacements that'll be coming up in 2025 as part of the street resurfacing project. Then also just a plug for maybe anyone that's watching at home, the 2025 Plant Dane native plant sale is now open for orders. Great deal, pretty good selection of native plants for a very, very reasonable price. And also Ripple Effects is doing a rain garden coaching session. So that's going to be coming up here March 2nd. So that's a Sunday. Basically, it's these one-on-one coaching sessions that people can sign up for, and we'll meet with them. We'll have all the aerial imagery of their property, all the contours of their site, and then we'll work with them on figuring out if there's a good spot at their house to put in a rain garden, and then help them with getting the right plants selected. So that's also open right now for registration, anyone that's interested.
Is that on the website, the city's website?
I will have to check. We posted about it, that included a link. I know the Plant Dane is. I'll have to check and see if the rain garden coaching session's on there.
So that's this Sunday, you said?
Sorry, March 2nd.
Oh, March 2nd.
March 2nd, Sunday. There's not that many spots available, so it could already be filled up. I haven't checked today, so I'm sure they'll fill it fast. And that's all I got for stormwater.
Okay, great. Phil, I want to give us an update on the sustainability.
Yes, it'll take me a second to find here. Sorry, I was trying to update our online recycling guide to reflect the pizza box thing, and the page I want to update, it tells me that somebody has a lock on the page going back 3 years that they never released. So I'm submitting an IT ticket and see if I can get that changed.
It's been updated for a while.
Apparently, I know the recycling guide toolbox that you can kind of search in, and it'll search for specific items in the recycling guide. That is just embedded on the page, so that's been updated more recently. I'll figure out where that tool lives and update it. But at least that main recycling landing page is a little outdated.
Yeah, you'll have to send it. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I've got a note on the sustainability plan. We've gone through meetings with all the department heads and other key staff, met pretty much throughout the month of January, and finalized that by meeting with city leadership, Chad and Adam and Misty, to talk about implementation strategy. So I am working right now, among other things, on putting together a resolution to have the sustainability plan reviewed by council February 25th, referred out, and then brought back hopefully March 25th for final approval. I will make sure that Ted from Pale Blue Dot is available for the March 10th RCC meeting. I anticipate that's when RCC would be reviewing the final plan. The thing that I still need to figure out with Chad, and I think he's got to talk with the mayor about this still, is how we want to handle the committee meetings, because there are probably over a dozen different committees, boards, commissions that would like to look at this, and that is just going to get too cumbersome. So trying to figure out how best to handle committee meetings. I know that RCC is going to get a chance to look at it because you're the primary citizen body that's going to be tasked with reviewing this. I just don't know what else it'll look like, but yeah, my expectation is that March 10th we'll have a discussion on this again with a chance to vote on that final plan. A little personal note that I think only Ron has heard: the timing of that is going to be perfect, assuming we get this approved on March 25th. Then in April, I'm expecting to be to have a second.
You cut out.
You cut out.
Did I?
Yeah.
Try again.
April 2nd.
Is
What?
this some kind of a gender reveal?
Oh, no.
April 2nd, I'm expecting another baby.
Oh,
I
congratulations.
mean, my wife is, but yeah. So looking to get this approved March 25, because shortly after that, of course, don't know exactly when, we'll be out for a little while, and I'll then have to, take a few weeks, come back and actually get into implementation. So the goal is to have this approved March 25, so that once I get back from that kind of first rush of parental leave, we can just dive right into it and don't have to worry about any more committee approvals after that break. The other plan I'm working on is the bicycle and pedestrian plan. So we have a 2017 plan. We've been working on updating that. It's kind of part of why the sustainability plan's gotten slowed down a little bit, is I'm sort of trying to juggle both of these simultaneously. So working with MSA Professional Services, they're our consultant for that one. We've been working on updating maps and narrative. I will be meeting with them again. We've got a monthly phone call scheduled, and I'm meeting with them this week to see where they're at and get a little bit more information for them. So that one is going to get delayed. Hoping to have it, the final version of that plan update done in May is the goal right now, but we'll just have to see how things get put together over the coming weeks and couple months. Also working on 2 reports, so already gave you a little bit of a sneak preview of the 2024 municipal energy benchmarking and renewable energy analysis. I'm also working on the Green Tier Legacy Communities report for 2024. That one took me a little bit longer last year because of the sustainability plan. I got a little delayed. They've made it clear this year that they're going to be, the DNR is going to be a little bit more firm about that report for member communities, that if we want to be qualifying for certain grants and kind of letters of support from them, that we need to have that submitted by March 31st. So March 10th meeting, I'm planning to bring that report as well. I know we covered this the last couple of years, but for any RCC members that go back more than 3-4 years, you'll remember that we used to have a little bit more of a narrative report that we'd submit to the DNR every year, and it's more of a web kind of SharePoint based tool now, so there's not that same sort of narrative flow that we used to have. But I'll still share what we've gotten and sort of where we've progressed from the last couple of years with this new method of reporting. But hope it'll be nearly done by the March meeting. I don't think it will quite be finished yet, but as close as we can get it. Went to the Renewable Energy Summit last week at the Monona Terrace. Renew Wisconsin puts that on every year. Some really good sessions. It's a good opportunity to talk with some of my counterparts at other Dane County municipalities, as well as others around the state, and folks from Focus on Energy and some other energy and renewables focused private business individuals as well. So just a nice, I think, especially given a lot of the uncertainty about broader support for renewables and electric vehicles and things like that in the last month or so, it's really good to meet with a bunch of other like-minded folks and kind of remind ourselves there's a lot of people pushing for this stuff, a lot more than we tend to hear about. So there was some really good energy came out of that meeting.
Well, it's great. A couple of years ago, we didn't have 1 EV vehicle. Now we got 7.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Great work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully that keeps going. Certainly with this, I'll just add a little, not info here, but just sort of where we're at with so governments don't, of course, pay federal taxes. So the tax credit for electric vehicles is kind of a non-factor. So what they did with the Inflation Reduction Act was they created an elective direct pay option for governments. So we file with the IRS, and they would just, rather than a credit that goes into your taxes the next year, they just give a direct payment to the entity. We have filed for direct payments for a couple of our electric vehicles and expected to file for the rest of the remaining 5 this spring. We have not yet gotten our payment for those first 2. We're still waiting. I think a lot of municipalities are still waiting. It just took quite a while to get things figured out for the first slate. Hopefully that doesn't get held up. We're just kind of waiting right now to see if that money gets freed up, because it is, it's technically obligated. We did file it, was approved by a congressional act, but we're not sure where that's at right now. If it looks like the tax credits for electric vehicles are going to go away, it won't stop our push towards electric vehicles, but it will factor into the economic discussion. It will probably slow things down. There are still some vehicles that we'll definitely replace with EVs, and some others that just have to see if that changes the calculation a little bit. But we're certainly aware of some funding uncertainties like that and the way it may impact some things going forward. And hopefully that will be minimally impacted. But yeah, that is, trying to remember if there's anything else I had that came up in the past couple days to throw in, but I think that's everything. Oh, the one last thing is, we have, I think I gave an update on this in November. We have 1 remaining solar inverter that's not functional. When we got 3 or 4 inverters replaced last year, about a month after that, 1 on the West Fire Station went down. So we got into a little end of year silliness where there was a brief issue with the City Hall one. So instead of replacing the West Fire Station, we said, oh, let's wait and see if we need to do 2 at once. City Hall one ended up being fine, but by the time we realized that, now we're just waiting to see the funds that we were going to use to replace that West Fire Station inverter were obligated to 2024, so we're waiting for council to approve the carryover budget into 2025.
That wasn't
as soon as they approve that carryover.
That wasn't under warranty?
So this was the issue where the warranty, they're inverters manufactured by Huawei that no longer operates in the United States, and they stopped honoring warranties.
Oh, I didn't realize that affected the West. Okay.
Yeah, so we had 2 inverters replaced under warranty by Huawei. Then we had 4 more inverters fail, and they refused to respond to us. So the settlement that we received from Huawei paid for part of the 4 replacements last year, and then we also had a resolution that council passed. I think it was R3324 that put some funding from, I think this was either from a TID closure or from ARPA, into additional solar inverter replacements. But that money was for 2024, and now we're of course into 25. So as soon as council approves the carryover of those unspent 24 funds, then we can work with Arch Electric to get that last inverter replaced.
So we don't need to include that with the CIP request for this round?
Correct.
Okay. I thought there was a library for yeah.
All right, thank you, Phil. All right, last thing, activities being conducted or monitored by the commissioners. Anybody have anything to talk about, discuss? Go ahead, Chris.
Just have a few updates. It's been a little while on carton recycling in the school districts around the area, so just wanted to share some updates there. So we've been pretty quiet in terms of engagement within the Madison schools and trying to continue to expand that program this year. There just hasn't been the funding to continue to expand it. And we keep running into issues with staff changes, and where we get it implemented, the next custodian doesn't think that, well, we know this school isn't doing it, so why should we do it? So we've really tried to focus in on policy this year. So I did present to the school board, I think I did mention that at the end of September, and introduced a draft policy at that point, with everything going on and, around election time and end of the school year, like nothing really happened with that yet. But we did, I did work with Sustain Day, and we talked to the Carton Council, and they provided funding to help us make it policy. And so I have some meetings planned with former school board members on how to approach this and trying to make this, you know, become a reality. So, you know, I kind of think this is the kind of the last straw. The Carton Council, who has funded these programs ever since we started at Leopold in 2018, they did a pilot for us at Cherokee Heights Middle School in 2019 and helped to fund other pilot stations that we did. You know, they've funded a lot around Dane County. The Master Recycler program was funded through that. Other recycling initiatives on campus, at school. I mean, they have really, you know, leaned in to Dane County and Madison and kind of the things that we started. They have restructured a bit, and so the person that was providing, you know, working with us is no longer with the Carton Council. And so, but she did, on the way out the door, got 2 more grants, you know, approved. One is to go after this, you know, policy change with the Madison schools, which is where we think we need to get it in order for that to become, you know, sustainable.
Yeah.
And 2, she did get it approved for us to now start a carton recycling initiative with the Verona School District. So that is starting up this spring. We are in the process of wrapping up the 6 elementary schools that now have it in place in Sun Prairie.
Oh, nice.
So that happened last fall.
Good.
So we've made some good progress, but we've gone out to the periphery schools to make things happen right now. And then we know with Madison, we just have to get the policy in place, and that's where we're at. So
Good.
wanted to share that update.
Great.
Awesome.
Good job. Thank you.
By the way, on a related subject, where are we on the plastic bag collection?
Well, let's see, gotta be over 800 now. I think it was,
800 what?
pounds.
Oh, okay.
And our target is 1,000 or is it 2,000?
1,000, 1,000, yeah. It looks like we'll get there, by April.
Wow.
And is that the deadline, April?
I think they've got even longer. I think they had until,
Wasn't it July?
yeah, I think they had until July. So that wouldn't be a problem to get that by July.
Good.
I put it in 5 pounds tonight, so.
I'm not.
Very nice.
Gentleman, but I forgot it.
Why don't you ask him what did he do to collect 5 pounds of plastic?
There was
I
rice
keep
inside
filling
of
up
it.
in my garage. It's like, I gotta bring this in. All right, anything else? If not, we can adjourn the meeting at 8:56. Thank you, everyone. Nice job.